Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Cooking for the Family. I'm Dyvonne and today I'm going to share with you my recipe for banana pudding cake. This dessert will take you to star status with all your family and friends. It is that good and it is that easy. So first I'm using a 15.25 ounce box of yellow cake mix. Now you can also use a 13.25 ounce box of cake mix as well. So in my stand mixer, I'm going to put the box of cake mix, and I'm going to be following the directions on the back of the box of cake mix with a few variations because you know I love to doll up a box of cake mix, and we're going to take it up just a notch to the next level. So I put in a half a cup of vegetable oil, and that's what the box mix calls for. And then with substituting the water for milk, and I'm using 2% milk, but you can also use whole milk. And so this is 1 cup of milk. Now then to that, we're going to be adding our eggs, and we're adding the eggs according to the back of the box, which is 3 eggs. Now my 3 eggs are large eggs, and they're also at room temperature. We always like to use room temperature eggs in our cake mixes and our batters and different things that we're making because those room temperature eggs are going to blend better into our mixes versus the cold eggs straight from the fridge. Now with my eggs, I like to add my eggs in one at a time. I get my mixer going and I added in the other 2, and then this is the 3rd egg that we just dropped in. And I like to add those eggs in one at a time because it's easier for the blade to mix 1 egg at a time, so that way it's not chasing all 3 around the bowl. Next we're going to add some vanilla extract, and we're going to be putting in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now even when I use the 3.25 ounce box of the cake mix versus the 15.25 ounce box, I still put in the 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So we're putting in that 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Let that blend in. Now if you're using a stand mixer like I am, I do stop it, and then I'm going to scrape down the sides and the bottom because I want to make sure that I capture all of the ingredients, and sometimes things can settle in the bottom of our mixing bowl. So be sure that you want to capture any extra of the mix that's down there. I'm going to mix my batter until, even if I have just a little bit of lumps, that's okay because I want to make sure I'm not over mixing my cake batter. Our batter is looking great. Now if there happens to be any larger lumps, I can always mix those out by hand. If you are new to my channel, I want to welcome you in, and if you're a returner, I want to thank you for coming back. And I want to thank you for your likes, your shares, your subscribes, and your good 5 comments. I truly appreciate it. And if you're new here, I hope you consider subscribing. Now I've sprayed my pan with some non-stick spray, and I'm using a 13x9 casserole dish, and this is also a deep dish pan that I'm using. If you don't have a deep dish 13x9 pan, I'll be sharing with you what you would want to do. My cake is going to bake in the oven at 350 for about 25 to 30 minutes. Check it at about 20 to see how it's doing. So my cake is out of the oven. It has baked up. It was nice and done in the center with just a couple of crumbs. I like to use my tester stick or either a toothpick inserted in the center to make sure that it is nice and done and there's no batter on it. Now once my cake is cooled, then I start on my homemade whipped cream. You can use Cool Whip in substitution of the homemade whipped cream, but there's a term called gilding the lily, and putting the homemade whipped cream on top of this cake is that. I started with a cold bowl and a cold beater. I actually put them in the freezer for about 5 minutes, get them cold, and I used 3 cups of heavy cream and 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar. Next, we're going to mix together our instant vanilla pudding. This is the 3.4 ounce box of vanilla pudding, which is the 4.5 cup serving size. In the description box, which is under the title, when you click more, or it might say show more, I'll have a list of ingredients that you need to make this wonderful banana pudding cake. So next I put in 2 cups of cold milk, and we're just following the directions that are on the back of the instant vanilla pudding mix. So 2 cups of cold milk. I whisk this until the pudding mix starts to dissolve, and also our pudding is going to start to thicken up. That's going to take a couple of minutes using my whisk. I also like to check on my whipped cream to see how it is doing. It is looking good right there. And then also with my pudding, we want to make sure that we're going to get the pudding on the cake before it gets too firm and it starts to set in the bowl. So we want to make sure that we get this on the cake right away. So once my pudding is mixed up, and you want to make sure that it's going to be that pudding texture. And so once it's that pudding texture, this is what it's going to look like after a couple of minutes of me whipping it up. It is perfect, it's spreadable, but it hasn't started to set just yet. Our whipped cream is done, so we're going to start to assemble our cake. And this is what you want your whipped cream to look like. It's going to have nice stiff peaks, but you want to make sure that you do watch it, because it'll go from beautiful stiff peaks to whipped cream to butter really quickly. So be sure that you watch it. And I did whip mine on high. I started my whipped cream on low and then graduated it up to a high speed. I'm going to share with you how I build my layers. So first I'm going to start off by putting half of the vanilla instant pudding on the cake, and I'm going to smooth it out nice and evenly from edge to edge and corner to corner. Now I'm using that deep dish 13 by 9 pan. Now if you don't have the deep dish pan like I'm using, you want to use, if you just have a regular 13 by 9 that's not deep dish, definitely use the 13.25 ounce box of cake mix. It's a smaller box of cake mix, so therefore it's going to yield your cake when it bakes up, it's going to yield a little bit lower, and so that way you'll have enough room for all your layers if you're not going to be using the deep dish pan. Now if you happen to go to the store and you can get one of the foil pans that they have that's deep dish, you can definitely do that, and then I would use the 15.25 just to give yourself that little bit of extra cake. My next layer is going to be my bananas, and you want to use about 2 to 3 medium bananas, and I'm going to do a nice layer. I'm also going to double it up just a little bit. I like to make sure that every inch of my cake is covered well with the bananas, because this is banana pudding cake, and so we do not want to disappoint and have some pieces have more bananas or less bananas, and so I'm pretty generous when it comes to the bananas. So about 2 to 3 usually do the trick. And next I'm going to put on some Nilla wafers. I just crunch them right on top. And this is about 1.5 cups of Nilla wafers that I crush on top. And I found that it works better to crush them than to leave them whole when I layer them in the cake. And so I go ahead and I crush them all over just like that. And it's about 1.5 cups up to 2 cups max of those crushed vanilla wafers. I put the second half of my instant vanilla pudding on top. I'm going to dab it all over and then use my offset spatula to smooth it out. I find that that actually works best. If you don't have an offset spatula like I'm using, you can also use a butter knife. That's also a great way to smooth the pudding right over top. And make sure you go all over and those Nilla wafers are covered in the vanilla pudding. And so next, after I've covered them, we're going to top them with that luscious whipped cream. I'm going to put it all over from end to end. I'm going to be a little bit generous here. Now I also made a little extra for this recipe. I actually made a little bit of extra, and that's for something else that I've got going on. I'm going to show y'all what the other thing I got going on in the fridge. And I like to do a nice inch to about 1.5 inches layer of the cream. And again, you can also use the Cool Whip, and I'll have that information along with the recipe for the whipped cream in the description box. Once I have it all nice and smoothed on, the last thing I like to top it with is some whole Nilla wafers. Some whole Nilla wafers, and this serves for me 2 purposes. One is just a really nice decoration, and then the other is that I use it as a cutting guide for when I'm making slices, or if people are self-serving themselves, it's kind of like, okay, this is how you slice it, that your slice is going to end up with a Nilla wafer on top. And so it also helps me just to kind of portion it out. Now when I portion it out, with the pan, I'm going to end up with 20 slices of cake. And so that's going to be perfect. I'll be able to feed a crowd. This is great for the picnics. This is also great for 4th of July, which is just around the corner. So this makes a wonderful dessert. Now, before I put this in the refrigerator, I'm going to share with you the other thing I got going on. I have my beautiful strawberry pie. So in the description box, I'll share with you the link to my strawberry pie I recently did. Now this is my rum strawberry pie, and so you can make it without rum, and I do share how you do that if you want to make this fresh strawberry pie without rum, as well as my wonderful homemade pie crust. Now I put my cake in the refrigerator and I let it chill for 5 hours. You can let it chill for at least, you want to do it for 5 to 6 hours or overnight. You can definitely make this cake and let it chill in the refrigerator overnight. I've made this cake for my son and some of his friends, my sister, my nieces and nephews. They are all going to be getting cake today. I'll be seeing them this afternoon. And the pie, well, the pie, that's for my hubby. And so I'm going to go ahead and give y'all the first slice, and I'm going to share with you and show you. And you see how I slice it, where it makes it really easy just to use that Nilla wafer on top as your guide. And it has sliced up so nicely, and it's easier to crush those wafers because it also is easier to slice. Well, let me go ahead and give y'all the first bite. The cake is nice and moist. You have those layers in there. You can just smell the banana. Go ahead and take your bite. Now I'm going to take my bite. Oh my goodness. Y'all, this cake right here, and with that homemade whipped cream that we put on top. Yes, ma'am. Well, I hope you give this recipe a try and you enjoyed spending time with me in my kitchen. Don't forget to show this video some love and give it a thumbs up, and click share. Share this video with a friend or family. And don't forget to click that notification bell so you can come back and visit me again in my kitchen. And remember, it's always good when Dyvonne is cooking for the family. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.